You know that feeling when you can't even put a game down? But with Dredge, it was even worse than just simply not being able to take a minute to go to the bathroom. I couldn't even take the time in the first 2 hours of the game to even save it. I was so addicted, I didn't even want to go away from the main menu to look for that ever so helpful save button. Once I realized I'd been playing non-stop, I knew I was in for something good. My first impressions of Dredge were the art style is fantastic and the graphics are really good for an indie game, especially in the early areas. The way the water glistened and the reflections in the water as the waves wash over, excellent. Each port town looks so cozy as well. I really want to go visit one of these non-existent video game towns to just soak in the breeze. Hi, I'd like to isekai into your horror fishing game, thank you. Later on, it does lean a little bit more into the spooky horror vibes, so the sparkling beauty goes away, but my eyes definitely do not. They are still glued in on how great the game looks, but one of the things Dredge gets right is the vibes, man, and not the puff smoky vibes, but the I think a monster is trying to kill me vibes. I also never had any major graphical issues when I ran the game on my PC and Steam Deck, and I probably played a majority of this game on the Steam Deck, but needed to play on the PC to, get some recordings. But through that time, I never really had any issues. And it wasn't that I expected this thing to annihilate my graphics card, but I was still really impressed with the game. And I did play the majority of the game on the Steam Deck, and I think that heavily benefited my playthrough, as I was able to fully immerse myself into the darkness. So if you have a Steam Deck or another portable device like a Switch, I would also heavily recommend that you play it on there, as most likely your TV or computer screen are just gonna blast you away with its white screen brightness or something. The music and sound design are also excellent in this game, which is very, very important for a horror game to elevate that spooky vibe that it's usually going for. Not that I'm probably going to listen to the music outside of playing the game, but it's essential during the experience while you're playing it. Once those initial impressions wash over you, that's when you start getting into the fishing mechanics, which are very addictive, and that's when the real gameplay loop starts. You get in your little Timmy tugboat, you start fishing, and there's just so many ways to fish. With all the different rods, the nets, the crab pots, and the dredging, there's just so much variety, and it is much appreciated. And when you fish with your rod, there's plenty of little QTE style mini games that keep things spicy, and every different style has something else. But no matter what, everything felt so fresh all the way through. I could see how maybe going 100% could get a little tedious, but that means you're probably forcing it on yourself, so just don't do that. There's also lots to unlock to make your ship even better, and most really isn't required to beat the game either. But you gotta fish, and fish you shall. Like any upstanding citizen, you need the brightest and newest iPhone, which in this game's case is fishing equipment. And you also need to make a lot of money. Every time you angle up a new Tetramino fishy, you need to cram to your boat's hull, which is where you'll probably spend about 25% of your time organizing everything, including the rare treasures that you'll find that you need to sell off. For even more money. The boat is so fun to just move around and control, as well as especially when you increase your max speed. And if that's not fast enough, there are also several abilities that help you move around the world, including one that lets you blast your engine into initial D mode and glide across the sea. But don't go too fast, as you could end up damaging your boat, and then you're forced to move as fast as my grandpa after a knee surgery. The other abilities are pretty useful as well, but I don't want to get into spoiling them too much. But overall, I played the game for about 10 hours to get the full experience, and you could probably beat it in a couple and maybe even one sitting if you're crazy. But I've really only showed what's going on during the day, as there's a whole other aspect, and that's the night. As a once brave, one-eared angel himself said, I often think that the night is more alive and more richly colored than the day. And Dredge is the epitome of that. Have you ever just been walking around in the dark, trying to get to the fridge for a midnight snacky, and you stub your toe or kick your cat? You're using your phone's screen light as the only light to navigate through your messy apartment. You start getting the feeling of, what if those monsters I was scared of as a kid do exist? And now that I'm 30, they've come for me. Well, that's what the night fishing in Dredge feels like to me. Night fishing, as you might expect, reduces your visibility and starts to play some weird tricks on you while you're playing the game, like putting obstacles in your way or threatening you with some of these weird, spooky cloud mist things. In the beginning, you're probably not going to want to fish at night very much, but later it becomes crucial, as certain crucial fish only appear at night. You also seem more likely to be able to catch those weirder fish in the game, but Dredge wants to keep you on your toes, so you don't get off that easy. Because these waters have monsters, matey. And not those cute little fuzzy monsters like in Monsters, Inc., but the scary monsters like in Finding Nemo. The farther you get into the game, the harder it is to avoid their presence, and the more scary and bold they get in making their presence known to you. The later areas of this game do start to really get a little scary, and the circumstances get even scarier as you finally start to realize you're starting to lose a lot of space. And just moving around the whole game world and around those islands gets a lot harder as the spaces get a lot tighter, and now you have this faster boat, so it gets a little harder to maneuver around in the later areas. I will admit this became maybe a little bit annoying as I started basically hitting every single rock that was in my way, trying to run away from one of the monsters. But at the same time, this wasn't for too long in the game, since the game is only 10 hours in total for me. Dredge heavily benefits from the nuanced storytelling and doesn't really want to say everything too bluntly, as you'll have to explore for a lot of those answers. And that heavily benefits the horror vibes of this game. The gist of the main story path is that you need to return all these secret treasures to this old man on an island who's very mysterious, but he's also giving you those new abilities that I talked about earlier, and you gotta get those. You'll be traveling around to different islands, and you'll meet one or two new characters in each area that are usually about as pathetic as you might expect from a gaming NPC. Whether the issues are dealing with a scary monster in the area that will probably divulge into some sort of a boss fight, or their equally scary gross brother who is just wanting to come back home to his older brother. These main character quests are key to progressing the main story and are key to piecing together some of the mysteries. You won't get anything too deeply emotional, but I think that will also heavily depend on how much you can relate to the story that's being told. I'm not going to pretend I found everything in the game, but I will mention that the game does have multiple endings, and those are pretty easy to get, and you don't have to replay the game to achieve every ending in Dredge. I wish other games would handle their alternate endings a lot like this as well. But overall, I think Dredge is an excellent indie fishing game. I don't really pay attention to these type of games too much before, but I'm really glad I tried this one out. If you haven't played this yet, I 100% recommend this game, and you should definitely add it to your wish list. Dredge is just a great time, and whether you're a horror game fan, or you're an indie game fan, or you're just even an Animal Crossing player that just wants to do some more fishing, I think you will very much like this game. Anyways, I hope you liked this video, and subscribe to the channel and like the video too if you really enjoyed it. Thanks.